about the
Address 2 for the record, please.
Ron Fleer, 33 Sunnycrest Drive. What about the fact that the DEP and United Mine Workers showed me less than a year ago that dump's still burning?
To the extent that's true, that would be taken care of in the course of the Act 2
Well,
work.
if you open it up to air, it's really going to burn.
That would be a question for the environmental consultant, not
Well, I
the
think
environmental lawyer, but I think that the answer to your question is the Act 2 process is designed to conduct a thorough examination of the site and deal with whatever is found.
for chemicals.
No, they're gonna drill with the bony pile wrong. They're gonna drill.
I mean, I could take it right now and show you where it's burning at, a couple of places.
Well, again, whatever we find will be dealt with. That's the whole purpose of the program.
So about the residents that live by it.
You would think the residents that live by it would be happy to know that the environmental problems are being addressed.
But it doesn't seem like, and maybe I'm really missing something, and I apologize because I missed your presentation on the 23rd, but it just seems like we're starting down a path that we can't turn back away from, because the goal really is to build this public works building within the next couple of years. And once we start that process, we're stuck with this. So what about the residents, and what about if we find something, and what if we're 2 years in, we decide not to build our public works building until we get Act 2 clearance, but we're 2 years in and it doesn't pass Act 2. It just seems like we still don't have enough information about what's really there to make an educated decision. Because you're not standing before us saying, oh, we're 6 months into Act 2 clearance and everything's going great and we haven't really found anything additional. And, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to, but like we haven't gotten to that point yet.
The property's been studied from an environmental perspective for 30 years now
By whom?
by ABB and its contractors. And all those reports have been furnished to us, furnished to Mr. Perry at American Geosciences, and furnished to the DEP for that matter. So the problems at the property are pretty well known. In terms of the neighboring residents, I would expect them to feel like they're coming out ahead, to know that the environmental problems are being taken care of, as opposed to the current situation where nobody's doing anything about them.
But don't the environmental problems start when you start moving the soil? Isn't that's my understanding of a lot of the problems that are up there, is it's underneath. So as long as the soil on top isn't being moved around, the problems that are underneath are staying underneath. But if we're going up there and we're drilling and we're driving machinery to do pavement, aren't we then kind of activating the problems again?
No, I would expect it would be to the contrary. First of all, wherever the public works building is going to be built, there will be environmental soil borings at that location to make sure that that part of the property is clean, or the township won't start building there. The township, if it finds a problem that is serious, the township can terminate this agreement. That's what the agreement says. In terms of stirring up soil and so on and so forth, it is very likely that the way this Act 2 process will work out is that it will result in an agreement with the department that any areas of contamination on the property have to be capped. What that means is capped with pavement, capped with a certain number of inches of clean soil, et cetera, so you're not allowed to go down into the contamination. Now, if some future builder, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, wants to build on an area that's capped, they would have to have DEP approval to do that, and then they would have to follow various safety prescriptions from the department to make sure it's safely done. They've thought of all those concerns. Those are all built into the regulations.
Who's they?
The DEP.
But there's a gentleman, he's out here, he's in this town, he's worked up there for years. He buried drums everywhere, so, everywhere. So you can drill a hole right beside a drum and miss it. I think it's a bad deal for the township.
Dan also said he's gonna find that guy and bring him and ask him to help.
Last time the DEP looked at was 1996.
You think he's
Was
gonna
the last time
remember?
they were there.
You think he's gonna remember? I mean,
Who, this guy?
no, because he said they're gonna bring him in and ask him where that'd be like asking
Well,
me
he
to.
is gone.
Well, yeah, I know, he said he knows where they're at, so.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Dan's guy wants to find that guy and have him out
And
there.
what if you miss some?
Well, my dad used to work at J&L Steel down on Second Avenue in Pittsburgh. That's all now shiny,
I
high-tech
don't care
buildings.
about Cecil, I care about Cecil.
Understood. Every neighborhood, every community has its former industrial sites, and dozens and dozens and dozens have been successfully cleaned up under the Act 2 program. That's what's going on here. What we're doing is nothing novel. It's nothing scary. It's something that companies, townships, and environmental professionals have gone through with the DEP many times since Act 2 was enacted in 1995.
Well, I can tell you this, we built a lot of them buildings up there. If it wasn't so bad, them buildings were only like a year, 2 year old. Why did they tear every building on the property down?
You mean,
Because it was contaminated. I watched them dump drums down the mine chute when I was working up there. The guys below the Red Dog out, they come down and say, "You done here?" They throw a couple drums in, run over and smash it. When you go down, you're gonna hit it. There ain't no doubt about it. It's as bad for Cecil Township.
Anybody else have any comments? Yes, sir.
Joe Petito, 12 Sunset. Is there a guarantee that there's no contamination to the air when they start all this work? Because you got the school right there. I would say no.
well, there aren't very many guarantees in life. But
You got a brand
There's
new
no-
school full of kids. You gonna do that? Without a
do
guarantee?
what?
Dig up the dirt or?
I don't think
whatever?
I haven't said anything about digging up the dirt. I don't think any digging up the dirt is anticipated. What I've talked about is capping, which is keeping whatever contamination is underneath the ground, keeping it there where it can't hurt anybody. That's a more typical approach.
How would we build a building without digging up the ground?
As I said, in the area where the public works building would be built, you would do soil borings to make sure that that area is clean. If it's not clean, the township makes, change its mind about its plans, in which case, if it's so advised, it could terminate the agreement.
But to Mr. Petito's point, that's right, literally right next to a brand-new building with 750 K to fourth graders. So what happens if you start drilling these and realize there is air contamination after you've impacted the entire town of use and the school right next door?
Cindy, you bring up an interesting point that maybe we really should have it looked at and
Yeah.
go through this process of the DEP so that we know that the school is safe. It hasn't been done up to this point, but this would be at least a way that the DEP could check it out and make certain nothing is near our kids or the school.
Is there a way to do what Supervisor Savatic is saying? Can we work with the DEP before we sign this agreement that basically commits us to purchase it and commits us to?
We've been working with the DEP. We've had 3 meetings so far. There seems to be a misconception that DEP is going to go out onto the site and do work. That's
We understand.
that's
It's
not
a
what
company
they're going to do.
that Dan, that I can't remember the name of right now, that Dan knows. We understand that. Our concern is, it is then, as soon as we sign this agreement, or I shouldn't say our, my concern is, as soon as we sign this agreement, it is our responsibility to work with the DEP and this company. Dan, what's the name of the company?
American Geosciences?
America Geosciences, to clean up this property. The problem is, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, the purpose of this is to build a public works building. That's what we've been looking for property for years. It just seems like this is a lot of risk and a lot of headache and risk to the people in Muse, risk to us financially as a township, risk to the kids that go to Muse Elementary for something that may or may not pan out to be what we want. And I guess as a company, you can take that risk, but we're not a company, we're a municipality, and we have to be very careful about what we're spending our money on.
If you spend money and you get to the point where you've determined that an Act 2 release is not feasible, you can terminate the agreement and ABB will pay you back for the environmental money you spent. Now that changes once you build a building. So you don't go in and build the building as the first thing. You go in and do an environmental investigation first so that you make sure you satisfy yourself that you can build the building for keeps.
Who determines what is satisfactory? Like, what if we go in there and say, well, this is too much contamination, we're not interested, but ABB or the DEP saying, oh, it's okay, it can be cleaned up, but we're not satisfied, can we terminate it?
The regulations published by the DEP specify soil and groundwater maximum contaminant levels for every chemical you can name. So when you do soil borings, you do groundwater testing, you're measuring the results against those published data. So you don't have to make a judgment as a township or as an environmental engineer. You're just comparing lab values against published standards published by the state.
Dan, you were ready to stand up and talk about the testing doesn't do the damage to there when they're drilling cores to test. I think you were just ready to address that.
Yeah.
It seemed like a concern that that's going to contaminate the air by testing.
Right, the testing will be done by taking borings that are standard borings, and similar to what they do for geotechnical borings. There'd be 3-inch holes that are drilled with an auger. Any of that material that's brought out from underneath is bagged and taken off of the site. Vapors or anything like that, I don't know if that would be a possibility that they would be released. But what I wanted to say was there's already a number of holes that have been drilled up there. And there's been groundwater monitoring going on for a number of years. That's part of the things that ABB already had to do to satisfy the state as a part of its initial cleanup. So, in terms of all we're doing is really augmenting and adding.
Can everybody hear Dan?
We're adding a number of different locations to where drilling these small diameter holes, sort of putting holes in a number of different places around the site to determine what the issues are. And the biggest issues that I recall from our meeting with the DEP, a couple meetings, was really, they were satisfied that the site was relatively clean in terms of the major contaminants and solvents and the other things that were there. But they were still concerned that there might be some groundwater issues that were still there, and other issues where there might be a seepage of surface water into the environment. That was their biggest concern. So as we've talked about, the first thing that we're going to do is the water testing. That was identified by DEP as the biggest issue, the biggest hurdle to get over for Act 2. If there's any fatal flaws in that, we're going to stop immediately. So that would be the plan if you guys decide to move on.
All right, thank you, Dan. Anybody else?
I want to know, is this a done deal? Because why, after 27 years, ABB filed for mitigation 9 days ago? I get that straight from the DEP today.
I don't know what you mean when you say file for litigation, but
They filed, they're going to start mitigation. 9 days ago they filed.
file what?
That they're going to get a permit to start mitigation.
I don't understand what you're saying. It doesn't
Why
make any sense to me.
27 years? Because there's something there.
Well, nothing is a done deal until the board votes on it. So when the board votes on it, then there's a signed real estate agreement.
But answer my question. They know there's something there. Why are they already applying?
Everybody knows there's something there. It's been investigated for 30 years. It's a contaminated site.
The whole site's contaminated.
It is a contaminated site. There's no question about it.
We're going to start taxpayers' money on it.
No, you're going to spend a certain amount of money.
And you
If
just say.
the board agrees, it's up to the board, it's up to your elected officials. But if they agree with the contract, then it obligates the township to spend money on the Phase 2 process. It ends up with a release of liability, which means the site is considered clean under Pennsylvania law, which I would think the people that live around there would consider a benefit. If you disagree, then you want to encourage your representatives to vote no.
But what you're missing is, you're saying, as Cindy said, you're going to build a building, you're going to be moving a lot of dirt. So once you uncover it, it's already uncovered.
Again, you wouldn't build a building in a site that had contamination. As I've said a couple times, you're going to do targeted soil borings in the area where you propose to build a public works building to make sure that A, it's geotechnically sound, and B, that it's environmentally appropriate. If you don't find that it's environmentally appropriate, then you don't build it there.